Greetings, my name is Rudimentary Rob. Welcome back to my Valheim series. Today we've got a bit of a mixed bag for you, but before we begin I thought I'd check in as I promised I would to show you what the vine berries look like in the light of day. As you can see, I've expanded quite a bit since I initially planted them. And that's because on one of these panels you'll usually only get one or two lots of vine berries at a time. So I thought, hey, more panels, more vine berries. So that's what I ended up doing. So we end up with, I got, what, 5 or 6 lots of vine berries in there, and that is providing me with a reasonably steady supply. They seem to pop maybe at least as frequently or slightly more frequently than some of the other crops. So it's not quite as time-intensive a crop compared to some of the others, which was very, very pleasant. Anyway, that's our farm catch-up. We are going to move on and get some more action going today, and oh my lord, are we ever. So, strap yourself in, put your wizarding pants on, because we are going to be getting our mage out. And here we are. We have our mage gear on. I do have 2 of the embler pieces, but I still haven't made the chest piece because it needs flametal, and I just don't have enough flametal to spare. We're also sporting the Ashlands cloak, which has the wind run ability. That is going to very much help with our mobility. And we've also got a couple of bits of upgraded food there to give us a better ITA pool to work with. And we've also got some lingering ITA potions, because the biggest bottleneck that you're going to find with running mage is the amount of ITA. And my skills, I did grind my skills a little bit more. At the moment we're sitting on about, what are we on about? 40-ish, I think, for each of my skills. And I would regard that as probably not enough, but sort of on the cusp of it. Like, it is doable, as you're going to see, but I think more skill would make it a bit easier. But I'll let you be the judge of that. So, in short order, we do get rid of an Ashlands, and we're going to pick ourselves some more crops. We do really well for gathering in this run as well. And we have been smacked by yet another Ashlands. I did promise you there was quite a bit of action in this one. And you're not going to be disappointed. Right, one of the advantages that higher skill would benefit you in, particularly in Ashlands, is the need to have summoned skeletons around. Long story short, the lower your skill, the more likely it is that you're going to be relying very, very, very heavily on your summoned skeletons. But the problem is, your skills are quite low, which means your skeletons are not going to have a lot of survivability. And that is going to be a reoccurring theme in this episode. I'm showing the skeleton summoning in full. Bear in mind that I do have the Queen buff still running, and a lingering ITA mead still running. So my ITA regeneration there was pretty nuts. And the time it took me to summon those skeletons with those buffs on is probably equivalent to maybe 2 or 3 times quicker than doing it without those buffs. And that's where your downtime is going to be as a mage, particularly if your skills are a bit on the low side. So, yeah. The other issue with the mage, and this episode, I'll just let you know now, I recorded, probably about an hour and a half. And that's what I normally do as melee, and I can usually squish it down to about 30 or 40 minutes. Yeah. Because the mage is so action-packed, I got to this episode being almost 30 minutes, and I wasn't even close to the end of the session. So, this one is going to be broken up over this and possibly one or two more future episodes. So stay tuned for those. I'm going to stop waffling on now, so you can appreciate the majesty of the mage. Oh, and I've had a bit of feedback about these night sessions in Ashlands being quite dark, and to be honest, even when you're playing the game, it's quite dark, let alone what, video encoding tends to do to it. So I've just put in a little adjustment here just to see if things are better. If you want to leave me a comment down below and see what you think. If there's anything you can, tell me to do a bit different or better, let me know. Yeah, there's a liberal amount of brown trouser usage during this fight as well. I thought I only had the 2 Ashlands, turns out I had 3, and the third one was actually a 1-star, which I've just uncovered there. So, yeah, bit of a handful. Now I've realised that there was 3 Ashlands there. I actually think I probably did about as good as I could. But then being Ashlands, yeah. The Morgan enters the chat. Yeah. If you're planning on being a low-skill mage in Ashlands, can I suggest you bring with you the bulk brown safety trousers pack from your local nearest retailer? You will use every single one that you bring. Yeah, this little nook against my fortress wall, this wasn't its intended purpose. It's just there so that mobs can't path into the fort over the wall. But as it turned out, it was quite a handy little refuge from this Morgan. So, yeah, hooray for that. Yeah, I pretty much reached the conclusion at this stage that nighttime in Ashlands, even as a mage, is probably a little bit too much to deal with. And I was seeing a few hits on the shield bubble, so I thought I'd go in and check on that. We went back, we got ourselves a rested buff, resupply, and now, in the early morning light, we are going to see if we can do a bit better than we did last night. Now, there is a minor pain to do with the skeletons because their pathing is just as dumb as the regular skeletons and pretty much every other critter in Valheim. They will, you know, stand in the fire. They will do really dumb stuff, and resulting in them dying needlessly. So there's a lot of sort of preparation in my exploration. You know, can I go in a given direction in a manner that my skeletons aren't going to want to stand in some lava somewhere and then die, and then I have to go through the whole ritual of resummoning them. So if you see me sort of run up to a spot and then stop and then turn and then go in a different direction, it's, yeah, I'm just trying to preserve my skeletons without them, you know, boiling their own bits to death. Yeah, the Askvens are a royal pain. When they do their little charge sort of leap attack, it's enough damage that it always bursts the bubbles on the skeletons. And with the bubbles down, my skeletons are really squishy. And you can't really chain cast bubbles all the time, not the least of which it eats a ton of Ita. It actually eats a ton of your own health as well. So you get a lot of this sort of thing going on in Ashlands where you'll lose your skeletons. Doesn't matter what you do, they'll just end up dying. But they're doing it to, you know, try and get you to live a bit longer. So when you look at it that way, their sacrifice is more noble. But is it any less of a pain in the backside? Nah, not really. Now, the more observant of you may have noticed that I actually am not carrying the crossbow or any bolts, and that was a decision I made fairly early in my mage journey of this episode. I'm mainly doing it because it takes up 2 slots, and to be honest, there's not much that the crossbow can do that I can't also achieve with the fire staff. So as you can see here, we're doing our long-range bombardment of the summoning stone over there. The fire staff bolts, they're not just fire, they actually do blunt damage as well. So as you can see there, with reasonably minimal effort, I was able to destroy that pillar from sufficient range that it didn't have the opportunity to spawn anything extra in. Now, I heard some very eerie noises coming from the proximity of this arch, more specifically this end of it. And the gravestones sort of clued me in that there's actually a summoning pillar inside this structure. So I'm just using the Doorknocker Mark III there just to see if I could destroy it. I'm not quite sure if I was successful, but hopefully I was. Having those summoning pillars obscured like that is, I think that's a bit kind of cheaty from the game devs, but anyway. Keep an ear out for them. They'll make this kind of eerie, ghostly sound, a bit like the summoning Grey Dwarf summoners in the forest. You know, when you stand next to them and they kind of whisper and stuff at you. Yeah, these ones are a bit like that. Yeah, I'm kind of determined to break through this area immediately around my fortress base. So I've just used the Queen's Power to buff up my Ida regen by 100% for about 5 minutes. It allows me to summon the skeletons a hell of a lot quicker and gets me back into the battle. It's a really useful buff to have as a mage because the amount of extra Ida you get from it is just nuts. And it allows you to make a more sustained push when you keep coming across, you know, summoned critters and, you know, Chard and Askvins and all that other good stuff. More particularly, I tend to rely on it a bit like I do Bone Mass, so if you're coming across something big and nasty like a Morgan, having the extra Ida regeneration means I can just spit out so much more damage, and I can bring the Morgan down a lot faster, which of course greatly improves my chances of surviving the encounter. Yeah, I was getting quite frustrated with the frequency of respawns that were occurring around the fortress. I don't know if it's just something to do with the territory or I was just a bit unlucky. Of note, this session was recorded like the weekend before they provided the latest patch, which adjusted or nerfed the spawn rate of a lot of the critters. So I'm expecting my next session to be a little bit easier. Stay tuned for that one. In the meantime, this one and the next episode will be kind of the last of the, you know, pre-patch spawn rates. Now, Morgan has once again entered the chat, and unfortunately I'm not in an ideal circumstance here because the Queen's buff has still got a long way left on its cooldown. Chugged one of my Ida pots, and that helps, but it's still a pretty tough fight. Alright, we are approaching our episode end, but that's not the end of this session. I'll pick up where I left off in the next episode. If you've enjoyed the content, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Until next time, my name is Rudimentary Rob. Thank you very much for watching and have yourself an absolutely fantastic day.